What's up, YouTube? It's Bracket Attack, and I'm back with another video, but this one's a little different. We are going to go over a couple of the versions of Dimir, and we are going to talk about the Dimir decks specifically that are the top tier, higher ranked Dimir versions, and they have got me up to top 300, I think 21 in Mythic right now. So we're going to keep grinding with these versions and tweaking them along the way. Hope you enjoy this, and please, if you enjoy these videos, we're going to keep creating them. Hit the subscribe button. Also, watch them live on Kick, and I've included my Kick link below, and it'd be awesome if you could follow me on there as well. All right, so the first deck that got us through Platinum and into Diamond again from last season is Dimir Lurrus, and I think there are some definite changes that I want to do to this deck. The main change being I want to add one commit to memory. I think commit is such a great alternative win con if you can't get there in other ways. And commit can really take them by surprise. Commit's front side is an instant, so if you do it on the end step of their turn, you can get rid of that nuisance card, and maybe you have enough mana on the next turn to cast its backside when their defenses are down. Now, the good thing about commit is that it pairs very well with Orcish Bowmasters. Orcish Bowmasters says when the opponent draws a card, you make an orc amassing 1, and you shoot any target for 1. So you can either shoot down their entire board because you're making them draw 7 with the backside of memory, or you can shoot the opponent for 7 and then swing in with your 7/7 amassed Orcish Bowmasters Orc army. Agent or Fiend overperformed all the time. Love Agent. That paired with Lurrus is so much value. To just take everything off the top of their deck, I think it's an incredible alchemy only card. Oh, it's the alchemy set, but it's historic and alchemy only. It's an incredible addition as a 1-drop. I think it's one of the best cards, best 1-drops in historic. Fatal Push, of course, is a must-have. I do have Waterlogged Grove to activate Fatal Pushes. However, Fatal Push is only a 3 of because I don't have good activators in here. We also have Recursion with Snapcaster Mage, so I don't have to run all 4. I can always recur a Fatal Push from the graveyard with Snapcaster. I think Inquisition and Thoughtseize being split is smart, maybe a 1/3 like I have now, just to kind of avoid some of that extra damage you take from Thoughtseize, and allows you to still really hand hate them, and you can cast either one of those back with, again, Snapcaster. So there's a lot of recursion in this deck. With Lurrus also getting Snapcaster back. Unearth, probably the most important piece, in my opinion, of this deck is Unearth. Unearth gets your Lurrus back if it dies after it comes out of the companion slot. And in your graveyard, you can Unearth Lurrus and then do some nasty stuff that turn by using a Snapcaster Mage with Lurrus, targeting Unearth again, targeting a Bowmaster. It can just snowball very quickly. Unearth is very important because it also targets your main threats, being Snapcaster and Bowmasters, getting them back into the battlefield, but also having Snapcasters enter the battlefield trigger to then target Unearth again and maybe hit Bowmasters. You can get Snapcaster back into play with 1 Unearth. That Snapcaster targets the Unearth you use to get this Snapcaster back into play. That Unearth then targets Orcish Bowmasters that you got from Snapcaster Mage's recast trigger. Snapcaster Bowmasters, I think, are very important inclusions in this deck, and I think they're critical. Some decks don't run Snapcaster, but I think in this version it is absolutely essential. Change the Equation is overperformed. I love Change the Equation. I used to have 2 more on the side, but I think there's some more important pieces. But Change the Equation as a 2 of and Make Disappear as a 3 of is my counter suite that I run, in addition to Archmage's Charm. Now, Archmage's Charm is a draw spell for me, but it also can cause the opponent to draw, and I can shoot them with Bowmasters. So just always remember there's an alternative target for drawing 2 cards. It doesn't always have to be yourself. You can target the opponent and shoot that extra damage, swing in with that bigger army in the next turn, and don't allow them to use that card advantage that they gain from Archmage's Charm. Star and Ransom, incredible card. It allows you to play the mirror very well because you can just cast it at the end of their step, let them respond to Star's Ransom, or that you get card value out of it. So it's very good when you're playing a mirror, control mirror, and you have open mana that you need to spend, and you can't counter anything because they didn't cast anything that turn. That allows you to get incremental card advantage, and it ultimately, hopefully, gets you that edge that you need to win the game. It's also digs for some of these key pieces that you need in the event that you need to find an answer to one of their threats or to one of their spells or whatever that is. Commit we explained a little earlier, and we have a couple removal spells and removal suite to sum up the deck. Now, This deck is very straightforward. Lurrus is where you're getting your value from and how you go over the top. You also have Unearth as a backup spell in your hand that you can always cast and hit Lurrus as soon as I remove it. Some of these sideboard pieces that I'm using, Spell Pierce is very good. Cut down, more removal against the fast aggressive decks like Mono Red, or just other mirrors like with Orcish Bowmaster and Snapcasters. Cut down is very good. Pithing Needle I think is the best sideboard card in Historic. Pithing Needle shuts down a lot of win conditions in a lot of decks, and it's hard to remove other than with Beseiju. Some decks just fold entirely to Pithing Needle because they can never remove it once it hits the battlefield. I think it's incredible. I think it's a must-have and a 3 of in both versions I'm going to show you today. Soul Guide Lantern is a recurable graveyard hate spell with Lurrus. So it hates their graveyard, it draws you cards, you can bring it back every turn with Lurrus and get card draw every turn with that combo. So you sacrifice it, bring it back with Lurrus, sacrifice it again, and rinse and repeat. Saintsful Stroke is for cards that are going bigger, like Sheoldred or the other Wandering decks that want to go above your head. It's also good against Gates decks. Noxious Grass, good against Mono Green. Unlicensed Hearse is graveyard hate, of course, and it's also recurable with Lurrus. Languish is against a board that goes wide, or any deck that gets ahead of you on creatures and you don't have enough removal spells to get them off the board quick enough to save yourself. So I think we're there with this deck. There's just a different variety of the Dimir colored lands. All the Storm Giants is absolutely mandatory in this deck as a 2 of, because it is a very consistent win condition. This deck does rely on Hall of the Storm Giants a lot winning you the game. So I think it's mandatory, and you can see that there's no single black sources. That's because Archmage's Charm, that I don't want to be stuck with in a weird position where I have 2 blue sources and 1 black source and I can't cast Charm. Waterlogged Grove helps us draw into more cards, of course, but it also helps trigger our Fatal Push and have its Revolt trigger active. So this is deck 1. This version got me through Diamond, and I'll show you kind of just how it got me through Diamond. So I hate this fucking ad. So you'll see initially when we started this deck, the first version of the deck, we started losing quite a lot early on. We removed the Drown and Locks early on. We added some more, some of the cards you'll see in the final version. We removed and we continued tweaking the sideboard and main board as we got into more and more matches. You'll see that I was 1-4 here, and I start improving as I put the Unearth package in. And then as I continued tweaking the deck, I started doing even better. So this deck eventually got me pretty positive to where we were 20-10, and we got to Diamond rank Mythic, or excuse me, we got to Diamond 1 with this version. And then we changed to the version I'm about to show you next. This is the second version of Dimir. Now the big difference of this version, of course, is there's no Lurrus, so we can go a bit bigger. The core of the deck remains the same, but we can go into the Sheoldred, the Apocalypse, and One Ring combo. Sheoldred and the Apocalypse and the One Ring are the main theme of this deck. It's the core of this deck. When you have Sheoldred in play and you're drawing a ton of cards, you're gaining a ton of life as well. You're stabilizing against them, fighting against any threat damage-wise, but you're also doing damage to them with Sheoldred's alternative ability, which does damage when they draw. So having Sheoldred in play is really actually the most important element of this deck, and protecting that Sheoldred is very important as well, or getting it back, which is why we run 1 Tekanuma. So Sheoldred, losing all 3 Sheoldreds is very tough for this deck to come back from. We do have Hall of the Storm Giants as another win condition. We have Kiora, Best the Sea God, which I've come to find out is very good against this meta. It takes Sheoldreds, it takes One Rings, it's their hexproof threat. It taps their stuff down when you're trying to win a race at the end of the game. Kiora, Best the Sea God, is actually very good inclusion that I've added, and it's not that hard to get into the field with Phyrexian Tower, Shambling Ghast ramping you to get there. So overall, the changes in this deck are we have a little bit more Fatal Pushes, and that's because Phyrexian Tower. Fatal Push is very good when Phyrexian Tower is in play. Revolt is almost always active because we have Shambling Ghast that gets us a Revolt trigger when we sack it, but we also have Orcish Bowmaster's tokens, or even Orcish Bowmaster's itself if we need to do that. We can sack it. Now, that helps us fuel out a few things other than just revolting our Fatal Push. It helps us fuel out a One Ring or Sheoldred on as early as turn 2. So if you get Shambling Gas into play on turn 1, and then you get a Phyrexian Tower in, and you can sack your Shambling Gas, create a treasure token, then you have 4 mana available to you to use on turn 2. That gets you a One Ring or a Sheoldred. And now a turn 2 One Ring or turn 2 Sheoldred on the play is absolutely devastating. It is almost impossible to come back from unless they have a removal spell like Go for the Throat immediately to answer Sheoldred. The impact of that being in the play for more than 1 or 2 turns is detrimental, and the One Ring being the core card you want to be casting on turn 2 is almost impossible to come back from with the advantage and the protection you get from One Ring. I mean, it's already good enough being cast on turn 4. Now you cast that on turn 2, you can understand how much better that is. A lot of times I realize that I've won against opponents that mill themselves out with, or I've almost milled myself out with this deck because you're drawing so many cards with the One Ring and Sheoldred, and you're gaining so much life that eventually you start running out of cards and threats to fight the opponent. Orca the Alpha helps solve that because it puts the power 9 in your deck. Not only is the power 9 very, very strong, go figure, it also helps build your deck back. So you get 9 more cards immediately inserted into your deck, and that helps you avoid milling yourself out or drawing too many cards with the One Ring. You can get more cards in. Now, other than how good the power 9 is and getting those consistently with the One Ring and being able to draw those, almost every game, the majority of games, you're going to draw one of your power 9s with the One Ring, if not multiple copies, because you're casting usually more than 1 copy of Oracle. Commit is another one that is similar to the deck we just showed you that combos with Orcish Bowmasters, so you can see the synergy there. Let's say it's a hate card. It's really a stone wall for you. You need to get it off the board. Commit bounces it to the second from the top. It allows you to set up 1 or 2 turns to get a counter ready to counter that spell when they go to recast it. So it prevents them from recasting the hate spell that you can't get around, like a Pithing Needle or something similar. The land suite is pretty similar to the before. We have 1 less Hall of the Storm Giants because we're not relying on that as much. We also don't want to have too many tap lands coming into play. We only run 1 of the Hive of the Eye Tyrant. Hive of the Eye is another great card to answer graveyard threats in the main board, but it's just a immediate annoying threat. Other than that, we pretty much have the same lands. These are the 2 decks that we are playing. And these are this deck got me to Mythic. So this deck is what I started running after I got to Diamond 1, and then this deck got me to Mythic. And I'll show you kind of the progression of how this deck got me there. You notice that this deck started out pretty strong, and there wasn't many tweaks needed to be made. I started noticing a little bit of weaknesses as I was playing it, but overall the deck was performing very well. I started adding, Tasha as another 4-drop, and eventually I removed my Agent of Fiends that you saw in the previous deck, and I added the Oracle of the Alphas. As we started playing more and more, you'll see that we started, just sideboard tweaking or mainboard tweaking a little bit here. We are adding some weird high-end threats, which I think the best thing I did to this deck was add Kiora. Every time I've gotten it to resolve, it's been, game winning, to say the least. I took out the Tashas that I didn't need. I took out one of the Sheoldred's Edicts that I have 2 of. I was playing around with, Tekanuma. I took out a Clearwater. I think Tekanuma is obviously still in the final version because I want to get my my Sheoldred's back. But you'll see as I got into most recent, I went 9-2. And so this got me into the high mythic ranks, into that 321 rank, and then I lost to a weird enchantment life gain deck at the very end. And then the only thing we've done now is took out Hallbreaker Horror, put that commit to memory in that we just did on the previous deck, and we are at where we're at. So overall 30-16 with this deck into mythic, into the higher ranks, and that's where we want to be. Top 250 this month, we're going to get there. If you want to see how, just subscribe to me. We'll continue to post more decks. Watch me live on Kick. But overall, if you're trying to get to high ranks and you want to play a Dimir deck, these 2 versions are the best options, in my opinion, right now in the meta. So appreciate you watching. Thanks. See you next time.